Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for this online session where we will provide a background on two different application papers that the IAS has worked on. My name is Hanne van Voorden. I'm the Head of Supervisory Practices and Operations in the IAS Secretariat, and I'm very pleased to see so many of you joining us today online. As you can see here on the slide, we have two topics today. And we are also joined by the chairs and vice chairs and leads of the work. So we're really pleased to be able to give you more background on the work on artificial intelligence or AI and operational resilience today. If we move to the next slide, you will see the program for today. This is me giving you a short introduction, and then we will first go through the paper on AI. And there will also be a chance for you to ask any questions that you may have. And then we will move immediately through to the paper on operational resilience objectives and toolkit, and also the questions and answers on that. So I will share a couple of more housekeeping items as well before we really jump into the real meat of the topic today. So firstly, in case any of you has any issues with following or seeing the slides that are currently being shown on the screen, or if you're joining from a phone, please be aware that you can also see the slides on the IAS website. If you go to iais.org and you go to our events page, you can find the slides there. They have been uploaded there. If you have any questions, you can already put them in the chat function at any time during the webinar, and we will come to you at the appropriate time. But you can also ask for the floor, and then at the appropriate time we will be able to unmute you, and you can also ask your question live. So both options are possible. If you have any issues with audio or otherwise, also please just contact the host, and we will try to find a solution. Finally, I should also share that this webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted on our website. So please be aware in case of coming to the floor, etc. So with that, I would really want you to start with the application paper on the supervision of artificial intelligence. Before actually going into presenting the paper itself, which will be done by our colleagues Stefan Klaus and Julian Arvero. They are the leads who have been working tirelessly the last, I would say, more than a year or so on developing the paper. I will first start with giving you just a little bit of more background on the other work that the FinTech Forum under the IAS is doing. Just to give you a bit of a sense of in what context we have been working on this paper, but also give you insights into the ongoing work that is expected from the IAS on this topic in the coming period. So at the moment within the forum, we have three different work streams or topics, so to say, where we focus on. One of them is AI, which is this being discussed today. Another one is really focused on how our own members, so supervisors, are using digital innovation tools in their own supervision. So it's like on SupTech. And then the third one is broadly the role of the forum to monitor any FinTech related trends that may impact either insurance supervisors and their work or the insurance community more broadly, and to analyze how certain trends may impact supervisory objectives, either in a positive way, but also in terms of creating new risks, and how possibly there should be any responses to those risks as well, in terms of how different jurisdictions across the globe are already responding to that type of trends. So one thing that we do, for instance, more concretely on that is looking at how insurance are already involved in the crypto asset market. And therefore, we're currently conducting a survey internally within our membership to get a better sense of that. On SupTech, what we do is we are working with our members, again, really focused on sharing good practices, but also challenges and how those challenges are being addressed in terms of how our conduct supervisor or prudential supervisors across their day-to-day business, so both in terms of collecting data, but also in doing their supervisory activities, how can they already use digital innovation tools, and how can we learn from one another? Finally, on AI, I will not spend a lot of time on that because the rest of the session will talk about AI. But there, I do want to flag that beyond the development of the application paper, which has now been finalized, we have two other projects ongoing. So one is that we collected some information this year through our annual data collection, which we call the global monitoring exercise. And we will have a section in the final report that we always publish around December each year on the use of AI and how that is impacting corporate governance and other topics related to that as well. And finally, the IS will continue to support our members following on the development of the public application paper. So with that kind of broad overview of what the forum is doing, I'm very pleased to now hand over to Petra Hielkema. She is the chair of the FinTech Forum, and she will share a few other intro remarks, and she will also explain a little bit the difference, the status of application papers, which is the type of document that we're talking about today. So Petra, over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Hannah, and hi everyone, and great to see so many of you in the call. I have the pleasure of explaining what it is we produced, and we got a lot of questions, got a lot of good feedback, so thank you also for all that feedback. But let me focus on one question: are you making more rules? At the same time, we also get the question, are you doing something to harmonize your supervision? Can we do this in one way? In supervision globally, it's the same technology when it comes to AI in particular. So let me start from that perspective and explain how we work. So we have the insurance core principles, and they're on the slide as well. And the insurance core principles are a globally accepted framework for insurance supervision, and that all the jurisdictions use as a starting point to make sure that they have good supervision in place, but also in itself it encourages the maintenance of supervisory standards that are at the right level, I would say high level, but also that are harmonized, that we're more or less doing, at least from the principle perspective, the same. That's the starting point. What we do then, if there are new technologies or new development and we get questions, we actually look at those and we ask the question, do the ICPs cover this or not? Is there a gap or not? And often we actually find there's no gap. It's very high level principles in the ICPs, so often we can still conclude that the ICPs themselves are fine and that there is no gap and that no additional standard drafting is necessary. And if you look today at the application papers, that is exactly the starting point. No additional standards are needed. But where then does that leave us for, and I'll relate to the AI example, which we will discuss first, but was also work that I was leading, and with a great team, by the way, drafting the application papers. Where do they then come in? And this is the logic that you sit together as supervisors, you have new developments, you get them on your desk, you need to assess those, you need to have a judgment on that, sometimes a supervisory judgment. You wonder how to supervise that. So first of all, there's a need from supervisors. How do we deal with this? Second, there's industry that says it will really be nice if we can know what you expect from us, predictability, but also if you could do it more or less in the same way, because that will make it easy, definitely at an international level. And that brings us then to application papers. So what we then do is we draft additional supporting supervisory material that will help inform the supervisors that work. So those are the application papers. It does not include new requirements, but it really helps and supports supervisors by giving examples, by giving recommendations of how they could supervise the new developments that are there. And while we do that, always proportionality will be part of it. We have very different players. We have very different jurisdictions. We have very different markets. And here the flexibility of the proportionality principle allows us to work from the principle with a set of advice on how to apply those principles in a proportionate way. This is the logic we work with, and I hope you will recognize that today when we go through the papers. Now, let's start then with the two topics, with the first of the two topics. I think that's the next slide. If you look at the next slide, what you will see is that when we looked at the structure of an application paper and how we will work on that, we start with the governance and accountability, and that really focuses on the core. What is the risk management? What is the culture of the company? How do we deal with human oversight? So in this case, it's the AI, and we said, how does a company have AI and the use of AI included in the risk management? What's the culture around that? Who is involved? That is what is happening in governance and accountability. So that was the first part of our paper. The second part of our paper is robustness, safety, security. It has to be robust, it has to be safe, it has to be cyber resilient, it has to be operationally resilient. Is that covered? I think it's an obvious one, but it deserves also a full new chapter. The next one, transparency and explainability, is of course something that really is often discussed in the context of AI. If a computer is doing the job, can we still explain the outcomes? Can we still be responsible? Can we expect responsibility as supervisors for those outcomes? And what do we then require as a credible explanation, and how do we organize that? What is acceptable, what is not? Technology can do a lot. I think it's the human thinking that says this is still okay or not. That's on that chapter. And finally, there is fairness, ethics, and redress. And this really touches, in the end, on the core task of insurance, regardless of what technology you use. And that is that people need to be treated fair. It has to be ethically right. And if they don't understand an outcome or they're not happy with an outcome, a consumer needs to be able to get redress. And if that is not well organized, that will impact on trust. And if it really impacts on trust in relation to AI, you risk that AI no longer is trusted, and that can have all kinds of repercussions. There might be more regulation because we don't trust it anymore. It may also be that people no longer want you to use it. And that would also not be good, because AI brings a lot of benefits. AI brings a lot of benefits. And I think one example that we saw in the EU is that the use of AI in complaints handling was really identified by many consumers as really beneficial for their customer experience with an insurance. Just the fact that you send a picture and very quickly you are told what will be the damages that will be covered by the insurance is absolutely great. So if we want to have those benefits, we need to manage the risks. So clearly, our papers tend to focus on the risk, but for sure, we also see the benefits. This is what you will hear from me. More important is what comes next, what comes from Stefan and also Julian, who worked on this paper on AI, and then later on the great work also by the Operational Resilience Group with Andrea. I'll stop here with saying a big thank you to all the stakeholders, if you're in the call, for responding and making an effort. We got a lot of good feedback, and it's thanks to that feedback that we were in the end able to deliver this wonderful paper. I'll give the floor to Stefan.
Thank you very much, Petra, and good morning, good afternoon to everyone on the call. Actually, in some ways, I was going to do this whistle-stop tour of the application paper, but I kind of think Petra's given you already a very good overview, and hopefully whetted your appetite to read the full paper in more detail. And in some ways, perhaps actually all I want to do also, in addition to draw out in all the aspects as you mentioned, I mean, this slide is all about setting out the format of that application paper, but just if we look about the risk-based supervision and proportionality. So the AI application paper clearly acknowledges that AI systems can vary in the risks they pose. For example, a documentary retrieval tool poses very different risks than an AI system used to determine claim payouts or underwriting decisions, and that's why risk-based supervision is essential. And I think also what we try to do is provide illustrative guidance in there. So say section 2.1 provides certain, Section 2.1 provides certain criteria or characteristics that supervisors and insurers could consider when assessing and assigning a level of risk to an AI system. The criterion are set out along outcomes-focused and technical-focused activities, which essentially recognises that determining the level of risk for policyholders and insurers is likely to require a combination of these activities. For example, on outcomes-focused criteria could include the potential for unlawful discrimination, whereas technical criteria could include the inherent transparency or explainability of the AI system. So that I think provides a framework that could help supervisors and insurers prioritise oversight where it matters most. So whilst risk-based supervision is about appropriate allocation of activities and resourcing to reflect the level of risk, that section also then goes on to talk about proportionality, which concerns the level of implementation of governance and risk management expectations, and specifically that the level of implementation should match the risks inherent in the AI systems. For example, a low-risk chatbot doesn't need the same controls as a high-risk underwriting model. So that's actually all I wanted to say, because I think, like I said, I think Petra gave you a pretty comprehensive overview of how we've structured the AI application paper. So with that, what I'd rather do actually is pass the baton on to Julio, who will go through how we responded to the feedback that we got in December last year when we issued the draft AI application paper, and then went through and we really appreciated actually all the feedback that we received at that point in time. So if we could go to the next slide, and if I could, like I said, pass the baton on to Julian.
Yes, thank you, Stefan and Petra, and hello to everybody. Yes, indeed, as you said, Klaus, I think we have to start acknowledging and thanking all the stakeholders that participated in the consultation. We received quite a lot of feedback, quite useful feedback. And yes, of course, we try to incorporate it as much as possible into application paper. And now we are going to explain a little bit how we did incorporate some of the main topics that we see more common arising from the responses that we receive from the stakeholders. First of all, one comment that we saw several times was the tone, with respect to the tone that we had used in the original application paper that we published for public consultation. Stakeholders consider that the application paper focused excessively on the risk of the use of artificial intelligence and did not acknowledge sufficiently the benefits arising from artificial intelligence, both for consumers and for the industry. I think they had a fair point that this is a mistake that we often, as supervisors, regulators, we tend to focus. It's our mandate to try to focus on the risks that certain activities can pose to undertakings or to consumers, but we also do have to acknowledge the benefits arising from artificial intelligence. As Petra correctly said, there are many benefits arising from it, and we have tried to reflect them. We have incorporated them. We used to have a blue box only about the risk of artificial intelligence. Now we also do have a box that highlights some of the benefits arising from artificial intelligence. And then maybe also with regards to the concerns, one legitimate concern with regards to the use of increasing availability of data and the use of more granular risk pricing arising thanks to the use of artificial intelligence. There were concerns that this can lead to financial exclusion of consumers, but also to stakeholders also raised that this could also benefit some consumers that were previously considered as high risk. So we have also acknowledged this in the paper. Moving on to another issue that was raised by stakeholders is regarding the definition of artificial intelligence. We had used the definition of the OECD, since we consider that this definition by this quite important international standard setting body such as the OECD, was quite accepted at the international level. we discussed it with the members, the feedback that we received, and we decided to maintain the definition indeed, because we do believe that it's important to keep some consistency with regards to the work that is also been developed in other areas outside the remit of the IIS. So for consistency purposes, we did retain this definition. However, we also try to incorporate some of the feedback that we received. For example, we place a specific emphasis on some parts of the definition, like autonomous and adaptability features of some AI systems. So this will effectively limit the impact on traditional or leave out of the scope traditional mathematical models that are used in insurance. But again, we try to maintain this consistency, but also at the same time acknowledge some of the comments that we received. In line with the next issue that I wanted to address is the issue of proportionality and risk-based supervision. Stakeholders consider that the application paper introduced new requirements. We're going to raise all the compliance costs, as it was explained before. Application paper do not introduce new requirements. We have clarified this. We have also clarified that it does not represent a regulatory checklist, but on the other hand, it provides guidance on how we see that the existing provisions need to be interpreted, with a special emphasis on the principle of risk-based supervision and proportionality. We have this was already in the paper, but we felt that it was not sufficiently clear for stakeholders, so we have now decided to create a specific section on proportionality and risk-based supervision to highlight the importance of this when it comes to addressing the use of artificial intelligence in industry. So, and it's at the beginning of the application paper, highlighting that, as it is the case of the principle of proportionality when it is applied to all the ICPs, it's also applied. We have highlighted that this is also applied to all the governance and risk management measures that we highlight. We include some examples where how this proportionality principle can be applied with specific examples that can illustrate how to develop a holistic approach to AI governance and risk management, bearing in mind that with this approach, what we want to do is to ensure that the outcome is a responsible use of artificial intelligence, and we don't place excessive focus on one or another of the measures that we highlighted, but depending on the use case at hand, they can be adapted one way or another, being all of them complementary to each other. Next slide, please. Then the issue of third-party oversight was also raised several times by stakeholders. I think it's an issue that it's important, and it's going to become more and more important in the future. It's also partly addressed by the application paper that our colleagues will present on operational resilience. But for sure, it's also relevant, and we have to take it into account. We cannot ignore it when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence. Indeed, many of these tools, artificial intelligence tools that are used by insurance undertakings, are developed by or in cooperation with third parties. So this raises some challenges when it comes to the implementation of the governance measures that we are outlining in the application paper. We have acknowledged that this, and on the one hand, the ICPs are very clear that the insurance undertaking must retain the responsibility of the tools, being AI or something different, that they use. They are ultimately responsible for what they use, but we recognize that third-party service providers also have a role to play. So we encourage undertakings to actively cooperate with them and try to obtain the relevant reassurances from these third-party providers, be it in different ways, through audits, through due diligence, or specifically, for example, including, we believe that this is more and more used, the inclusion of relevant clauses in the contracts that undertakings can sign with the third-party service providers. This is the approach that we have provided. So again, ensuring that the undertaking is ultimately responsible, but acknowledging issues like intellectual property or third-party service providers. So we also try to provide the undertaking some guidance on how to address the challenges that they may face. Again, we will probably continue working on this area in the future, since will probably become more and more important. The next point I briefly already referred to it is indeed this issue of more granular risk assessment are enabled by artificial intelligence in combination more and more data that we have now in the digital society that we live. I think it's reasonable to say that this will certainly create some issues for certain terms of financial exclusion or exclusion for some consumers. But I said also we have to acknowledge the other part, that thanks to artificial intelligence, the more granular risk assessment enabled by artificial intelligence, some consumers can benefit from a financial exclusion perspective to have access to more affordable insurance products. Just to mention an example, thanks to the use of satellite images analyzed with the help of an AI tool, one house that was considered in the past to be a high risk, then thanks to this more detailed analysis, it has proved that it's sufficiently is not so high risk. So this will enable to lower the premium. It can happen the other way around. It can happen conversely. So this is like this balanced, proportionate approach we have tried to follow. And again, this is probably more an issue that will become more and more relevant in the future as the algorithms become more and more accurate and more granular predictions arise. We encourage in the application paper stakeholders to actively cooperate with regulators, industry, consumers, other authorities as well, to have this engagement, collaboration, discussion. We see some interesting initiatives taking place in some countries in this regard. So yes, we acknowledge the positive and the benefits, and again, this is probably an issue that regulators, the IIS, also regulators at national level, will continue looking at in the future. We received, just to finish, several other suggestions, specific parts. We try to incorporate them as much as possible. Some was not always possible, but yeah, of course, they were still useful. And I think it was mentioned before, we are not going to, with this application paper, the IIS is not going to stop working on the topic of artificial intelligence. We are continue working on it, analyzing different aspects, more granular, specifically to some use cases. So this is all input that we will try to use as much as possible and take into account in our work in the future. And I think with this, I will stop here and open the floor for questions. Thank you.
Many thanks, Julian. That's great. So now we're going to take questions. Please feel free to either raise your hand and we can unmute you, or to drop your question in the chat. Please make clear your name and your organization, and then Petra, Stefan, and Julian will be able to answer your question. So the questions are now open. Please feel free to raise your hand. So we have one question from Yochem, so I will just unmute you and then please feel free to speak. Go ahead. Go ahead, Yochem van Stiphout. Afraid we can't hear you as yet. It looks like you may not have audio against your user. If you are unable to speak, maybe you can drop the question into the chat and I'll check whether anyone else wants to speak in the meantime. So I'm going to mute you again at the moment, but please feel free to drop the question in the chat. Can I check whether there's anyone else? It doesn't look like there's anyone else at the moment. We might therefore move on to the next presentation, but obviously if there's, okay, so maybe,
Can we try again?
yeah,
I think
perfect.
Joachim is saying that he might be
So
able.
if you, I will just find him in the chat, 1 second. Okay, you're now unmuted, go ahead.
Yes, do you hear me now?
We do, loud and clear, thank you.
Great, thank you. There were some technical issues on my side. Yeah, Jochem van Stiphout here speaking on behalf of the Global Federation of Insurance Association, where I lead the work of the work stream on disruptive technologies. From my side, thank you very much for the presentations today. And also we've seen some great improvements to the final application paper from the draft version. From the side of insurance associations, I think some of the remaining issues or concerns or points of attention we have with the application paper is that the level of detail in some of the sections, and that's specifically on the internal governance and the transparency and explainability, does sometimes still present with quite a lot of detail where we are worried that this may not always be able to be done in a proportionate way that leaves enough room for innovation. We do see, and we very much appreciate the added section on proportionality and risk-based supervision, but that remains a point of attention to us, especially in these chapters. Then I was very happy with your comments, Julian, on the tone, because that was also for us a major point. And for the further guidance that the IAS is planning to develop internally for members when it comes to AI supervision, our advice would really be not to underestimate also the role that supervisors play in having public trust in AI applications. So any over focus on the risks inherently has the potential to get the mistaken premise that AI is inherently riskier than a human doing the same work. And I think they're having the right balance on focusing on both the risks and the benefits, but also explaining as a supervisor what you see already happening in the market in responsible AI use is very important for the public trust in these applications. So our advice would really be to keep that balance and to keep that also positive tone in the further guidance that you will be developing on this topic. Thank you very much.
That's great, thank you. Petra, Julian, Stefan, I don't know whether you want to give any response?
Yeah, I can kick it up. Yeah, so yeah, thank you, Jochem, and also thank you for the GFIA and all the work that is done there. And I appreciate that we sometimes touch base, particularly also must compliment here Hanne and the team at IAS for that. I think we agree that tone is important. I think we show also that we see the benefits of, and we publish on that as well. Clearly also, we need to assess the risk, and there we need to strike a right balance. I think a supervisor that tells the public, we agree there is a risk, we see that risk, but risks can be managed, I think is also a way to address the public's concern about the use of AI. Saying there is no risk or just downplaying it can also send the wrong signal, but overdoing it is definitely also not good. So I think that is what we strive to do, to show that we hear that there clearly is something new that we don't know, and maybe 2 decades or longer from now we laugh at what we're talking about today. But it is new. I think we are conscious of the fact that it is. There's clearly a need for technology to help us also with the challenges that are coming, to improve the customer experience. We need to recognize that there is then a risk. We need to manage those risks. And if we do that consciously, we can. Proportionality is always a concern, and not so much only driven by industry, but we also have jurisdictions at our table that come from very different backgrounds, a very diverse community. I always pride myself in the fact that IAS is in Basel, but if you compare it, for example, to the Basel Committee, has a so much broader base of jurisdictions that are a member, but inevitably that means that you are talking with different markets and many of those markets really need the proportionality. So sometimes something is also not explicit in the paper because it's so much in our minds. But and thanks again for the feedback. Is there anything that you want to add, Stefan or Julian?
Perhaps just to note, I mean that proportionality section and the risk-based, that we did spend a lot of time on, and there is quite a bit of material in there. When we think about, it's not just well, you need to look at it across both angles of what the outcomes are as well as the technical aspects around it. And so and also I guess it does look quite a lot because the use cases can be quite diverse. But I guess also the proof will be in the pudding in terms of how that proportionality is then sort of meted out in some ways, both by insurers when they're looking at it, as well as supervisors. And I think, core to this as well, and we certainly use the IIS as that exchange of information to ensure that we are, looking at those risks in a similar way. So things like, as Petra mentioned, the development of these question banks and frameworks to support the application paper are definitely a continuation of that theme as well, to ensure we get that proportionality and risk-based supervision at the right level.
Thank you. So we'll go on to the next question that we have from Bernie Birnbaum, who is CEO of the Centre for Economic Justice. Go ahead, Bernie, you should be able to speak now.
Thank you for holding this session. Just wanted to add that the role of supervisors is consumer protection. So the focus on potential consumer harms is entirely appropriate for many reasons. First is that there are a number of new risks that emerge with insurers' use of AI, and these are risks that are not going to be solved by market forces alone. They require supervisory intervention to identify and address those risks. And then I'll just finish by saying it's unclear why supervisors should be cheerleaders for insurers' use of AI, as suggested by Jafia. If AI is beneficial for consumers, then those benefits will be obvious to consumers in the marketplace, and there would be no need for supervisors to do that. In fact, what insurers need is consumer confidence in the insurance product. So to the extent that supervisors are addressing potential consumer harms and making sure that those harms don't emerge, then supervisors are actively promoting trust in the insurance product. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bernie. Any comments from the AI panelists?
Yeah, just briefly, Joe, I don't think, I didn't hear cheerleading, Bernie, but I do think thanks for the comment. I think that's exactly the balance that we need to strike, that consumers, I think for good reasons, sometimes express concerns about risks. I think also with new things, we don't know all the risks. That is our job. And at the same time, if you look at the first version of the paper and the final version, we also did look at indicating that there are some advantages, not because I want to be a cheerleader of an industry, but because I do see in some areas that the use of AI can benefit consumers, and it can also help for example, in some parts of the world with an aging continent, and not every person leaving the labor market being replaced by a person because simply there are no people. What is then a good way to use technology to still provide good services to consumers with less persons available? And as long as we do that at the right speed, with the right focus on risks and managing those risks, and transparency, I think we can get to fair outcomes.
Julian, Stefan, any additional comments?
If I may add to what Petra just said, it's already for a few years that we are talking about the digitalization of the insurance sector. We are always talking about the need to strike a balance between the opportunities that the digitalization, including artificial intelligence, offers to consumers and the industry, and the risk, because there are also some risk, and it's indeed in the mandate of supervisors to address these risks. But I think the key issue, how we have tried to find this balance, is with the tools that we already have, and this is the proportionality principle that is in there. I think this is when we follow a risk-based and proportionality approach is the adequate way of trying to find this balance between maximizing the benefits but also addressing the risk. That's how we have approached it. And yes, I acknowledge that there's still work to be done, but I think the application paper sets a good framework for addressing this in this proportionate way, in a way that allows take it to benefit from the artificial intelligence, but also address the risk in a responsible way.
That's great, thank you. So thank you to Dave Snyder for the comment in the chat. I don't think we've got any other questions. I'm just refreshing. No, it looks like we don't. So thank you to everyone that asked questions there. I'm now going to hand back to Hannah because we're moving on to operational resilience. Thank you. Over to you, Hannah.
Thank you, Joe, and I hope that was useful for everyone, and I do hope you will stay on for the next session because it's very much a related topic as well. And this is actually an application paper that is currently out for consultation, so we're still seeking your inputs, and we very much hope to be able to give you some background so that you know what aspects of the paper we are particularly looking for your inputs. So for this part of the session, we'll run it in a similar way. We will start with a few introductory slides and providing some background. And then also at the end, we will have time for questions and answers. Also this time, feel free to already send your questions in the chat, but you can also raise your hand and we'll get to you then at the end. So I think I will hand over first to Andrea Vetrone. He's the chair of the Operational Resilience Working Group. And we also have with us the vice chair of the group, Max Tarnewski, who will also be here to present it and provide any questions you have. So over to you, Andrea.
Thank you very much, Anne, and good morning or good afternoon, everyone. I am Andrea Vetrone, as Anne said. I work for EIOPA, and today I am reporting as the Operational Resilience Working Group Chair. For this reason, I put on my IIS background. Of course, I work in EIOPA and in the team of Petra. So the work we have done together with Max, Joe, and all, of course, the members of the Operational Resilience Working Group on operational resilience started from our understanding that disruption occurs. Disruption are part of life of enterprises, of people, of citizens, and of course also of insurance undertakings. And in a world like the one where we live, operational resilience has become a crucial and central topic in the agenda of each and every undertaking. When I started working on this subject 15 years ago, operational resilience was something for practitioners of business continuity management or disaster recovery, or IT or IT practitioners or IT specialists. Now, operational resilience is really becoming a serious concern for business leaders and CEOs across the organizations. For this reason, we, having in mind this definition, so the fact that an operationally resilient insurer is an insurer that can react and can recover and can manage and can learn from a disruptive event, we decided as the IIS to develop this application paper. The development of this application paper has been a journey. And if we move to the next slide, I try to give you a bit of the sense of this journey, which started actually from the learnings of the group of supervisors being part of the ORWG from the pandemics. So the learning of the colleagues put together a first paper that was published in May 2023 about issues that insurers may face or could face or have encountered during the pandemics around their operational resilience. And there was in that paper there was a shift also on understanding of supervisors on the standard let's say or approach that somebody could hear that operational resilience is not a problem of insurers because of the lengthiness of the business cycle vis-a-vis the one of banks or other financial institutions. That paper pointed out on clear issues that were further developed by the work of the ORWG from 2023. Another key publication around the journey that put together the paper that we are presenting today to you was the Global Insurance Market Report of 2023, which was aimed at analyzing the impact of cyber risk in the insurance value chain on one side, and of course also of the strategic public role that the insurers play when insuring cyber risk. And finally, this journey ended with the kickoff of the publication of this application paper, which has been done in two stages, if you wish. A first stage, which was done exactly or almost exactly 1 year ago, with the publication of the first part of the paper, of the objectives of operational resilience, which are, as we will see later, the kind of vocational ambition of the supervisory community on how they have to cascade the insurance core principles of the IIS in the context of operational resilience. And today, complemented with what we called Toolkit, which is basically the operational implementation of those objectives by supervisory authorities across the globe. The first part of the paper, so the objectives, were already publicly consulted last year, and today we publicly consult together the objectives and the toolkit, which wants to, let's say, which in our idea wants to provide on one side the insurance undertakings and the industry community with the understanding of the IIS and the supervisors of how operational resilience could be understood and could be mitigated, the risks associated could be mitigated, and on the other side also to provide the supervisors with actionable examples and tools on how they can let's say supervise this area of the operations of an insurer on an ongoing basis. If we move to the next slide, this basically I have already said a lot. This here we have basically what I said is that we have consulted the objective last year, and of course we have received 20 individual feedbacks, and thank you very much for those of you, if you are on the line, or for the colleagues who have provided feedbacks to us. They were of course highlighting and helping us in finding the right balance in the wording of the objectives, which probably you will recognize in the version published that have been that has been improved, and that has been, let's say, all of your comments have been taken into account and also embedded in the development of the toolkit. And of course, as I said, we put together those two elements for the current consultation running until 29th of September. Our ambition is to finalize this piece of work by Q1 2026. So getting your feedback from the consultation and then finalizing the paper. I really encourage you to participate to this public consultation, and also to share it with your business contacts and colleagues within your own organizations, because we try to provide a cutting through understanding of the problems and some practical solutions. Your feedback, being practitioners working also on this field, of your colleagues being practitioners working on this field on a daily basis, could help us or can help us. I'm sure it will help us in further enrich the quality of the paper to achieve the objectives I mentioned earlier. So please invest the time to provide us feedback. You don't have to answer to all questions. Even an answer to a specific question is useful for us. Next slide, please. And now we enter into the structure. Basically, in this presentation, I was asked, or we decided with Joe and Max, that I would focus more on the structure, on how we decided to develop the the paper, and then Max, of course, will guide you through the entire substance of what we did actually. So I am more explaining the frame, and Max will explain the painting, if you wish. So looking at the structure of the application paper, as said, we have done it's done basically by two pillars: objectives, which are aiming at explaining the insurance core principle in the context of operational resilience. As you know, the ICPs are the globally accepted framework for insurance supervision. They are owned and maintained by the IIS, and they touch a number of areas of an operation of insurance, of insurers, including, for example, corporate governance, risk management and internal controls, enterprise risk management, and so on and so forth. Some of those ICPs have a direct implication in the context of operational resilience, but they are not fully clear when reading our insurer or our supervisor can decline them in that context. For this reason, as part of the work we did in 2023 and 2024 with WRWG, we have drafted those objectives to help insurers and supervisors in sketching, if you wish, a framework around the issues of operational resilience. And then at the end of last year and this year, we have developed with a survey run by a number of jurisdictions within the IIS scope. I have the number, I think more than 30. We have done a selection of practices that demonstrates how those objectives can be implemented. It's important that the idea we had with this toolkit is not to be comprehensive or to provide a full description on how the objectives are implemented in each and every jurisdiction around the world, but rather to provide examples and useful tools to supervisors when they have either to establish their own framework on operational resilience, or where they have to supervise their objective. Of course, they are high level, and in our idea, particularly the toolkit, the examples and the practices written there will naturally evolve as the maturity of various of the various actors in the system will evolve. So either insurers, the risks, of course, the insurers, and then the supervisors themselves. Next slide, please. In terms of the structure, we have done basically we have three key elements in the paper. We have the objective, and here we have an example on the objective number 1, which is about the governance, the relationship between the operational resilience and the governance of the undertaking. You have a green box which describes the objective. It is what we have consulted last year, and with the small with the necessary changes following the public consultation. Then you have a white text which is basically the summary of the practices observed from supervisors across the globe who participated to our survey. And third block of the application paper is the examples. So what we wanted to do is really, in addition to provide practices, we wanted also to provide actionable links, actionable places where supervisors or firms can click and can have an understanding of how the practices and the objective can be really implemented in practice. Here, when drafting the example, what we decided with Max and Joe was really to try to have a global approach. So not to focus on a specific jurisdiction, on a specific framework, on a specific model. Max and I come from a jurisdiction who have really implemented operational resilience in a very, let's say, detailed way, but we wanted to really give the impression and give the real picture of what is going on around the globe, showing that the same objective can be implemented with different nuances in different ways. So that's exactly the reason why you will find examples from around multiple jurisdictions. If you go to the next slide, please, Joe. we have here an example. So of course it's written in it's not my objective to read exactly what is written here, but it's more to explain you how we have defined it in the context of the paper. So 1 second, was here. Okay, so if you look there is objective 2.6, which is the insurers plan, test and implement changes in a controlled manner. Then you have basically a small text in the green box with 3 bullet points. How we have implemented those 3 bullet points within the paper. Each of those bullet points are basically the title of the subparagraph below the green box. For example, the first bullet point says that insurers have to consider their the fact that they need to have appropriate change management frameworks put in place, right? And then we have the first paragraph, which is exactly about that. And then we describe the practices, as I've explained, and we provide examples in the blue box from 3 specific jurisdictions. In this case, Canada, European Union, and Malaysia. Then we continue with the second bullet point, which is about the life cycle of the change management. And also there we have practices, description, and then an example from one specific jurisdiction. In this case, again, the EU. And third, we have the third bullet point with a description of the practices encountered. We have followed this approach throughout the paper, and now Max will guide you through and will provide you with some material and some information on what we have developed. Max, please, thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. And I just wanted to say that I'm Max Stanowski. I'm working in the FCA in International Division, and I'm Vice Chair of the Operational Resilience Working Group. I will take you through sort of more context of the paper, focusing on some of the objectives and the practices that we design and put in place in the paper. First of all, I just wanted to mention that in order to define and collect the practices, we performed a survey of our members, as Andrea mentioned, and I really want to say a big thank you for everyone who provided feedback on the practices that we then could work with. And it was really interesting to see how the practices have been implemented in different jurisdictions. And the interesting point about that was that what we saw is that if you look at the objective number 1, which is related to governance and risk management, we found that there is a very sort of consistent approach in terms of how those practices have been implemented in different jurisdictions. And I think from our perspective, we believe that this is because operational resilience and operational risk management have been embedded in the governance and risk management practices across the globe for quite some time. So that's why we saw kind of bigger consistency of those practices, which is then basically reflected in the way how we describe this in the paper. At the same time, we saw a wide variety of the practices related to key elements of a sound approach to operational resilience, because those kind of practices have been implemented in different jurisdictions in many different ways, depending on the regulatory frameworks, depending on the market's maturity, depending on the size of the insurance sector. So there's a huge variety of practices that we can sort of see and use as examples, and that provided us with a very good sort of baseline to define and provide those practices that supervisors and insurers can then take and choose from to achieve the objectives that those practices are related to. Can we move to the next slide, please? So I will go through the content of the paper, starting from the objective 1, which focuses on integrating operational resilience and ensures existing governance frameworks and ensuring that operational resilience is also forms an integral part of the operational resilience risk management. The regulatory practices provide some details on how supervisors can support the design and implementation of effective insurance governance frameworks and risk management practices, also providing some reference to expectations to board members and senior management. There are some examples of the regulatory practices from a wide range of jurisdictions. The examples cover also very wide range of expectations, including practices on board and senior management knowledge, skills, and experience, and ways to evaluate boards through supervisory actions. In terms of risk management, the focus is on implementing a risk management framework that is effective to identify, assess, monitor, mitigate, and report on the operational resilience risks. Can we go to the next slide? So as I mentioned, the objective 2 covers sort of more diverse key elements of the operational resilience framework. These practices cover a full range of regulatory tools designed to ensure operational resilience of an insurer. As we mentioned earlier, the survey results showed us the wide range of regulatory practices. As I said, the application paper provides a selection of tools that supervisors and insurers can choose from to achieve high-level objectives. For example, when we discuss identification of critical services, we provide examples of both top-down and bottom-up approaches that can be used to identify those critical services. The application paper emphasizes the importance of identification of critical processes and understanding how those processes depend on critical resources such as people, processes, systems, and of course, third-party service providers. These regulatory practices highlight the importance of an end-to-end approach to identification, mapping, and documenting each critical service and the related interdependencies, because that's basically a basement of everything that you do in terms of operational resilience and understanding how it all works together. We have provided an extensive set of supervisory practices related to setting impact tolerances as well, and the approach and practices related to testing and self-assessment of the operational resilience frameworks. We have also provided some examples of practices related to operational incident management. When providing examples of such practices, we also referred to the work done by Financial Stability Board related to format for incident reporting exchange, because we believe that this is quite a significant piece of work that is related to practices to improve the consistency of global incident reporting. Can we move to the next slide, please? So continuing the objective 2, speaking about key elements of sound approach to operational resilience, we also focused on practices related to the design and implementation of effective approach to ICT risk management, of course, including cyber risk management. We tried to focus on protection, detection, response, and recovery capabilities. And in this section, we have also provided a wide range of regulatory practices related to effective management of changes, business continuity, and disaster recovery planning, and the approach to managing risks and relationships with the third-party service providers, because obviously that's kind of, you know, one of the emerging challenges, I would say. Moving on, can we move to the next slide, please? Here is the objective 3, which is more focuses on the objectives and practices directed at supervisors. We think that the increased complexity and interconnectedness of the global financial services, including insurance sector, provides new challenge for supervisory community. The global nature of financial markets and increased reliance on global service providers require increased regulatory cooperation and information exchange. Here, objective 3 provides some good examples of how regulators can coordinate and exchange information better and in a safe manner, and how to improve culture of continuous learning and evolving to keep up with the increased pace of technological development in financial services sector, including insurance. Moving on, next slide, please. This is an indication of the timeline, which Andrea already mentioned briefly. So basically, we published paper on the 1st of July this year for the 19 days consultation period, which closes on 29th of September 2025. And then after closing the consultation, the operational resilience working group will work on the responses to consultation and will work on the final application paper, which we hope to publish in first quarter of 2026. And as Andrea mentioned, we really encourage all of you to provide feedback to the work that we've done. Thank you very much. And moving on to questions.
Thank you, Max, and thank you, Andrea. So we're going to open for questions now. We've already got one from Mikkel Zandbergen. So I'm going to unmute you now, so you should be able to go ahead. But others, please feel free to raise your hand or add questions in the chat. So over to you, Mikkel.
Hi, Andrea and Max. First, to congratulate you, because I think you did a good job. It is a good paper, and especially all the references to the different legislations really make it a interesting view. For your info, I'm working for Aegon Insurance. I've been DORA project manager the last years, so I've been involved in operational resilience for some time. There are 2 topics where I will do it in writing as well, but I want to mention it already now. There is many roads to Rome. I guess Andrea is Italian, so there's many roads to Rome. And if you look at objective 2.1, you seem to select the business service road. But you can also take the business process road, or maybe even a departmental road. And when you look in your examples of objective 2.1, I like especially South Africa, where they explain how they, based on business processes, determination, ensure operational resilience. However, your main objective seems to indicate services or business services. That seems to come from the Operation UK legislation, which is more business service oriented. And I would challenge you to make it a little bit wider, business service or process oriented approach, in order to reach the goal, having insight in the operational services and processes that you provide. So that's my first comment, that is considering making 2.1 a little bit wider, so it's not only the business service, but it can also be done on a process oriented approach. And my second comment is, if I look at 2.5, and you just explained it, the focus there is a little bit on security, then you start on change management. However, if you look at DORA, and if you're working for IOPA, you probably were also involved in DORA. They are much more focused on security. So what I would say in that objective, maybe referring to NIST cybersecurity frameworks, that could be beefed up a bit, because I think the focus on security as preventive measures for operational resilience incidents is crucial. And I didn't see that much in that topic. I think those are my 2 main comments. Other than that, a great paper.
That's great, thank you. Max or Andrea, do you want to take that question?
I can try to answer this. I think, answering the first question on, processes versus services, I guess from our perspective, we really want to be proportionate. The way how you slice and dice internal organization to isolate something that then you would kind of, analyze in terms of the criticality, the elements that support this process or service, how it's all related. I think it's up to organizations that do this analysis. And I guess from my perspective, there is not that much difference in processes versus services. We chosen the way to document this in such language, but I think we also can consider your proposal in terms of how to make it a little bit more sort of higher level and make this possible for people to choose, how to define what elements of the operational resilience processes or systems or services they can analyze without kind of losing this requirement of kind of having the mapping processes, the risk tolerances definition, and all the other things that are related to that. So that's my answer to first question. Answering to the second question, I think from our perspective, while recognizing importance of the information security and cyber resilience to support operational resilience of the processes and organizations, we also wanted to be a little bit broader and talk more about ICT risk management. From our perspective, cyber is a part of the ICT risk management, but there are other sort of non-cyber elements that may influence or may result in the failure of the processes. So we wanted to be sufficiently broad to show that organizations need to take care about those kind of things. So that's my view, Andrea. If you want to add something to that.
Yeah, just very, very briefly, thank you very much for the comments, and thank you also for the compliments of the paper. On the business services, we made a reference when we were referring to critical services to a paper of the FSB, and that's the reason why we use that language. We wanted to be broad and comprehensive, as Max was explained. Maybe we need to find out a new way. Happy to read your comment and to use it in improving the paper, that's for sure. On the point on security, Max has already replied. I have been involved significantly on the implementation of DORA, and I agree with you that DORA is way more technology oriented and therefore focusing on security. Here we wanted to be a bit broader, and it's fine. I think that the third bullet point of objective 2.5 covers that area. But if you have suggestions on how to make it proportionate and broad, but on the other side, coherent with your experience in implementing DORA, happy to consider it when finalizing the paper.
So thank you for that question. We have time for more questions, so please feel free to raise your hand or drop them in the chat. Whilst we're waiting, just a reminder that the consultation closes on the 29th of September, so we're keen to get responses back by then. I'm not seeing any more questions at this time. I'm just refreshing. Andrea, Max, I'm not sure whether you have any final remarks before we sign off.
Yeah, just maybe from my side, it's really useful if you participate to the public consultation, if you share comments like the ones we have before, because our intention is really to make our application paper as useful as possible for all the stakeholders involved. And so really your contribution as key stakeholders for us will help us in achieving our goal. So please try to invest a bit of your time in helping us in achieving this objective.
just to echo Andreas' comments, it's really important for us to receive your comments and your contribution to really make this paper, really worth implementing and publishing. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will stop now. A recording of this session will be made available on our website. I've dropped into the chat our LinkedIn channel, which we post all of the details about our events on. So please feel free to follow us. And otherwise, we look forward to your consultation responses. Thank you and have a good day. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.